everybody. Welcome back to the PetaPixel podcast. It's me, Jordan Drake, here, along with my friends Chris Nichols. Say something. Great. Good. My other friend, Jaron Schneider.
Hi.
And joining us this week, it's my buddy Levi Holwell, longtime friend of the show, collaborator, great dude. You'll all get to know him. But guys, a few exciting things. Oh yeah, you got to say something.
You didn't prompt me to say hi, so I decided to sneak it in there.
I'm so sorry, Levi. I don't know why I do these intros. I'm so bad at it. So exciting news. I was going through our Google Analytics this morning, and according to Google, the listeners and viewers of the PetaPixel podcast are the most attractive of any podcast out there. So that's exciting news for me. Yeah.
Wait, that's in analytics that shows that information?
Yeah, it actually ranks like your average hotness of your listeners on a scale of 1 to 10. And guys, we're 8.7. That's really high. Really compelling, exciting stuff.
Okay, but what are we? Like our actual, like ourselves?
It's weird. They have so much information about the listeners, but nothing about ourselves.
Is it just like a bunch of 8.5s wanting to watch a bunch of 4s? Is that just to feel better about
this? Is this just for camera review channels as well? You know, I feel like
this is globally. Yeah,
globally, all types of YouTube channels.
Exciting stuff.
I mean, every photographer that watches the show thinks they're a better photographer than I am. So why not think they're hotter too, right? I mean, come on.
Guys, I like to kick every episode off so viewers can learn a little bit about us. And I'm going to bring back an age-old debate that Levi can participate in this week. So, which fast food restaurant has the best coffee?
Oh.
Who wants to go first?
An easy question.
This was a huge debate on the set of A Walk Down to Water. The crew was really divided.
Funny. Yeah. Well, I'll take a swing at this. I think it's probably got to be McDonald's.
Oh, you.
Okay, it has to be.
So Levi is correct. The answer is McDonald's.
It's McDonald's.
Yeah, it's McDonald's. Absolutely. I remember when we were on set there, and I was like, "Look, there's a A&W and a McDonald's in this town. I understand some people have the preference for the A&W breakfast sandwich. That is fine."
It's like, what's A&W?
I've had A&W, but I did not know they did breakfast.
Yeah, no, they'll do a proper plate of bacon and eggs and stuff. But their coffee is the legendary Van Hoot. And
I think they might have moved away from Van Hoot, and that's why they are out of the debate now. They're out of the conversation. Yeah.
It wasn't much of a debate. We all agreed it was McDonald's.
Like, you could also even argue that Starbucks is fast food, and I would still say, even in that argument, that McDonald's coffee is better.
Wow.
Oh, better.
Now that is a take.
Yeah, because I don't think Starbucks does very good coffee. Pure, black coffee.
Right.
They have other drinks that are perfectly acceptable.
That is
true. Coffee is bad.
Yeah.
Anything's good if you load it with caramel and chocolate. And
and they're good at that.
Yeah, as long as the word swizzle is in the description, then it's probably great. Okay, well, since we were all in agreement on that, which fast food restaurant has the worst coffee? I have strong opinions on this as well.
Dunkin'. Of course you do.
Okay, never had Dunkin'.
I still want a Dunkin' Donuts coffee.
I think their coffee is really bad, but I'm probably going to get flack for that, but I don't like Dunkin's coffee.
You know, I know what Jordan's going to say. I'm going to jump in and say Subway actually has some
that's a good
That is a good call.
Really
that is terrible coffee.
I tried it once. It wasn't very good. And then their cup came apart, like the lid fell off and it wouldn't stay on.
It was just bad top to bottom.
Oh, it's just a horrible. But I mean, the sandwiches are fine, but the coffee, no.
I think I'd go Subway or Wendy's. You know, it's always going to be one of those places you didn't really want to get coffee at, but for some reason you were there and you had to get coffee, and then you went, oh no.
Yeah, if on the menu it says now serving breakfast, ! If breakfast wasn't part of the plan from the get-go, probably some pretty bad coffee. I'm going to say
should try Taco Bell's coffee. I'm sure they have it.
Does it have taco seasoning in it? It should.
Sorry, Jordan, I cut you off.
Jordan's
going to go with, of course, a Canadian staple.
No, I'm not.
No?
Tim Hortons? No, I'm going to... First of all, Tim Hortons coffee is terrible. It's really
everyone
bad.
knows that.
But worse than that, Chris, when we're at the airport early in the morning, which is going to happen to us very shortly...
Right, but that's a low bar.
There is one place that is open for breakfast in the morning, and it is a Burger King. And I swear they're just actively like
Burger
taking
King.
a fistful of coffee grounds and just throwing them at the top of your cup.
Is
Maybe
that
it's
not
this
the same
specific
it's Tim Hortons,
location.
It's the same thing.
Oh,
Jordan has a real hate for Burger King.
I really
Burger King
do.
does suck. It sucks.
It
Yeah, he
does,
also doesn't
yeah.
like the monarchy. So it's like I think it's you don't.
How is that related at all? It's just things
It's
Jordan
like the
hates.
king of burgers. I'm
Ravens,
opposed
it's
to
Burger
this.
King and the monarchy.
I'm opposed to the monarchy in my fast food
Yeah.
meals as well.
Jordan's a strong proponent of the class struggle and the working
It's because
man
it's the
rising.
king. I get it.
Yeah, he doesn't
Yeah,
appreciate
That took me
elitism or
way too
classism,
long.
and I think that's fair. I want to know there. Okay, so we could crap on them all day long, but there's got to be a fast food restaurant out there or a chain where nobody gets their coffee and it's probably cosmically amazing. I want to know what that is. So if the viewers have a suggestion, what's this like? What's
Unsung
the secret?
coffee.
The
Yeah.
unsung coffee, yes. Where everybody's like, you never get coffee there, and the you're like, oh, it's
Our
incredible.
Arby's does
coffee.
exclusively pour over coffee.
yeah, absolutely, right? Probably is.
No one knew.
Yeah.
I want to know.
That's as good a segue as any to, I guess, start the episode.
That was
Maybe
a
it's Baskin Robbins. I
fantastic
don't know.
intro. I'm very pleased. So yeah,
you
nothing
go.
left
All
to
right.
say.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
All right, welcome back. We, of course, love to thank our sponsor of the podcast for PetaPixel, OM System. It is brought to you by OM System, yes, delivering cutting-edge technology for photographers everywhere. Now, birding, apparently it's a really big thing, especially the older you get, the more you just automatically have to love birding. So,
Just
for the
don't
birding
shoot
enthusiasts-
crows or ravens or any
Oh, the
other
best birds.
just terrible
Oh.
black birds.
OM System has something special in store just for birders. So picture this. You're capturing those elusive feathered friends in their natural habitat with exceptional clarity and precision because OM System's broad lens lineup lets you push the boundaries of your photography adventure. And they really do give you excellent reach without having to have a huge amount of bulk. So the Emswico Digital ED 40-150 f2.8 Pro, great lens. I've used it a lot. I'm not going to say powerhouse, but it's a fantastic lens. Now
Game
available
changer?
$200 off, $12.99 US. You'll experience exceptional optics, lightning fast performance, must have for any serious bird photographer, and it works really well with teleconverters to get you that extra reach. As well, if you want to save a little bit of money, go with something even lighter. The Emswico Digital ED 75-300, 4.8 to 6.7. This is the second version. It's on sale right now with a $100 discount. Originally priced at $549.99. You can now get this for only $449.99. That's great for anybody who's just getting started in birding, wants to stay on a budget. You're still going to get tons of detail, precise optics, even from far away. Excellent for your birding adventures. Last but not least, the Emswico Digital 100-400, 5 to 6.3 IS. This gives you huge reach. It's $200 off its regular price. Previously $14.99, but now $12.99. I mean, that is actually quite affordable for a really high caliber lens like this that gets you that reach. So, impressive zoom range, built-in image stabilization. You will never miss that epic bird in flight, or as I learned in one of our recent videos, that's called a bilf or a biff.
A biff, Chris.
Not
It's
a
a biff.
bilf. It's a biff.
It's not a bilf. Don't say bilf.
Bilf. All
Don't
right.
do that.
I'm confused on that. I've been doing the wrong thing to birds. So head over to OM Systems website or visit your nearest authorized retailer to take advantage of these incredible deals before they take flight. Don't miss out on the opportunity to take your bird photography to new heights with the amazing glass from OM System. Thanks again, OM System, for sponsoring today's episode.
You know,
I think my new profile picture is the face that I made when Chris made that
Yeah,
last
I saw
comment.
that.
And I think actually Jaron's as well would be a really good profile for
It's
him
not
as well.
good.
No. Sorry, I cut you off there.
Yeah, so just in like the last couple of days, I saw a family of quail in my parents' backyard, a
Right.
really big red-tailed hawk, a turkey vulture, very close, and then
Dang.
2 crows, and they were very
Ugh.
lovely crows. Anyway,
Yeah.
the yard
Did you
full
try
of
and
birds.
befriend them like you talked about? 'Cause
They
if
were
you do, they'll
busy
stab you in the
attacking
back, Jaron.
They were
No, they
busy attacking
won't.
the turkey vulture.
They'll
Keeping
bring you
it away from
gifts.
their nest.
Corvids are incredibly smart. Crows, ravens, and magpies are all wonderful birds. God, honestly,
Magpies,
Jordan.
really? I don't know about that.
Photographically
yeah.
uninteresting.
So before we get to chatting with Levi here about documentary filmmaking, let's go over some news stories And there's a couple in here. Maybe at least one of these you'll have a major opinion about, Levi, because there's like,
oh yeah, I got opinions.
Okay, you're gonna share.
Oh yeah,
I don't know if they're good though. You know,
you want to shoot a movie on it? All right.
Yeah, no, go for it.
Bringing his hot takes.
So let's start with the biggest digital camera ever made is complete. It's called the LSST, the Legacy Survey of Space and Time camera, and it is a 3,200 megapixel giant camera. It's designed to be a telescope, but it's a big camera. Everything it looks like just a very like upscaled camera. This thing will be traveling down to South America into the Vera C. Rubin Observatory in Chile soon, where it will be placed in its final spot where it'll be doing its observing. But for now, it is at SLAC, S-L-A-C, which is over in the Stanford University in California. And I think in a little bit here, it'll be on display for those media people who want to come take a look at it. And it is humongous and super cool.
Yeah, I mean, we've been hearing news stories about this thing, like the building of this for a decade, I think, at this point. It's just like, you guys wait, this huge camera, it's coming. We're going to get there eventually. And yeah, it's really exciting. They've finished it.
Yeah.
And yeah, definitely check out the images on this thing. It is wild. Like we get really excited about like a medium format, like a 44 by 33 millimeter sensor. What are the dimensions on this sensor? It's cuckoo bananas.
It's big.
I mean, just all the purists are going to love that it's actually CCD technology. Going back to CCDs, everybody, so you'll have the best black and white tonality you've ever seen. But yeah, 3.2 gigapixels. They're basically saying it's like 53 full frame cameras, like A7R5 cameras all stuck together. Super flat. Like there's no variation on this. $700 million is what it takes to get you 3,200 megapixels. And
so stop complaining about camera prices rising
along
with inflation.
Focus distances. Like, can I?
So what? 46 light years, I think, is what it is.
What they've said actually is if you point this at the Earth, I'm trying to find the exact words. I saw this earlier. Like it could focus on a golf ball. Hold on, golf ball. I remember reading this, and it's something absurd where, like, if you pointed it down on the ground, you would not only be able to perfectly see the golf ball, but also like the entire sky around it. Like there's that much room to shoot with it. Like it's absurdly high resolution, and it does have a reasonable focus distance, but because it's not just going to shoot things super, super far away, it'll focus on closer stuff too. I mean, closer in the grand scheme of the universe.
Yeah, Chris is way off. He doesn't really know about like how far light year is,
46 light years, isn't that like
that's okay? They said our nearby cosmic neighborhood, man. That's not that.
Oh, that's
nearby.
Like 4 light years away.
So I found it. Here's the quote: "Its images are so detailed that it could resolve a golf ball from around 15 miles away while covering a swath of the sky 7 times wider than the full moon." So there you go. I think you need to be a decent distance away.
Yeah.
But a golf ball at 15 miles is insane.
Can I see the eclipse with it today? Is that what? Can I use it for the eclipse today?
Well, I think it is currently indoors, and it's also in California, so no.
Yeah, we should mention we're recording this right before the eclipse. So if the doomsday sayers are correct and the world ends, then that's a shame that this podcast is never actually going to hit anyone's ears, because I was really excited to get Levi on as a guest. But hopefully you got great shots of it. We kind of buried the really exciting news about this. You want to tell them, Jaron?
Sure. Earlier, when we first introduced this, Chris mentioned that they're going to an airport soon. That's because Chris and Jordan are going to join me down here in California. We're going to venture to Stanford, and we're going to see the LSST in person and show it to all of you all.
I'm going to stand inside it.
I don't think it's finished. You can't. They're not going to take it apart for you to
near it
curl into a small ball laying on the sensor. That'd be amazing.
Okay, but Jordan is definitely going to clean the front element with his child's sock.
That's a reference to your Instagram post.
He's going to pull out some kid's sock from the back of his car and wipe the front of the LSST with it. So watch that video. You don't want to miss that.
So here's the thing. Anyone who's watching this podcast now, if you've got any questions, if you want us to get any answers for you, if you want to know anything about this thing, put them in the comments on YouTube, submit them on Spotify. Just let us know what you want to know, and we will find out.
Yeah. We'll tell you what's.
I think you did tell me that. Maybe I don't know.
Yeah.
Oh, so it wasn't a surprise for Levi, but for the rest of our listeners and viewers.
It's still because then I learned more about it also just in the past few days, and now I'm like even more excited for you.
It is. It's really interesting. They keep mentioning like this will be used for the highest resolution movie, like film is constantly used. They're going to use this as a big time lapse tool, which is going to look absolutely amazing.
It's been a good few years for telescopes out there. You know?
It's really the decade of the scope.
What was it? The Webb?
James Webb.
James Webb, yeah.
Killing
James
it.
Webb telescope, yeah.
And Hubble's still going
I'm embarrassed that I couldn't remember that right now.
That's all right. I tried to save you. I tried to save you.
I know.
You what'd you say, Weber?
I said Weber.
Yeah, like the.
Well, I'm sure there is a Weber telescope. Don't worry about it. I'm sure there's one out there.
It's more niche. I'm too sharp with.
James Webb.
It's a totally indie.
Let me tell you about the Webb telescope.
You know the James Webb telescope? Wow, good for you. It's only the most famous telescope in the world.
Yeah,
Well, it's actually not in the world anymore.
Yeah. Okay. Wow.
Yeah. Well, I cannot wait to get pictures to see how many golf balls are on Alpha Centauri and Sirius. I'm super excited.
Okay, well, that's probably not possible. But moving on, let's talk about how a photographer in China flew over the border with his drone and took pictures of North Korea
years ago.
In what appears to be a extremely, I would not recommend doing this situation, but they provide you a really interesting look at the unscripted North Korea. So usually the pictures we get out of North Korea are from when they ferry journalists or people through very specific situations so that they control the narrative. This narrative is not controlled. And while these pictures aren't like, ooh, artsy, they are interesting.
Fascinating. Yeah,
they are interesting. The city looks empty.
Yeah, isn't that weird?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, this was shot in 2020 because they've since geofenced it, so you can't fly drones in there. He did this when they hadn't done that, but it was still absolutely illegal. Everybody's staring at this drone, and he kept it under wraps for years because, of course, very, very obviously, you don't want to get caught with these, or nobody find out who you are. It's still completely anonymous.
Exactly. Even that.
Yeah.
It is empty, which some of us might be going, well, wow, North Korea, but also like it could just be COVID lockdowns, you know.
That's true as well. Yeah. What point in 2020 was that? I should check that out. That's a really good point.
Yeah.
Nice
There's
work.
people out and about. There are people out and about.
And they are masked. Yeah. They're masking.
And I like very few cars.
I can see like the movie scene of the drone operator like flying this, and then suddenly like on his LCD flying the drone, he'll just suddenly see people who are like on the ground, and then they just snap up to looking at him, and then it would just cut to him flying, and suddenly there'd be someone over his shoulder.
Absolutely. That's the reveal. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is interesting. Yeah, to see everybody looking up with kind of like this does not happen here in North Korea kind of expression on their face. But yeah, just really interesting photos. And there's been some good work. I believe it was like the New York Times showed a bunch of like what you actually see on their like guided tours and stuff like that, and was grabbing little smartphone pics in between. It's a really cool series. I might dig that up and send the link to Jaron. But from above is a totally different perspective.
It's always interesting to see all the different people who are trying to crack, the reality of North Korea with sneaky camera shots and spy cams and drones.
I think Seth Rogen did a great job.
Well, that was an interesting movie. But like smartphones and stuff, it's really interesting now that we have technology that makes this really kind of this guerrilla style of reportage in these very secret places even more possible. So, yeah, interesting stories. Such a sad story though overall.
Yeah. All right. Well, enough of that. Let's talk about something else. It seems as though Sony does let you upload custom LUTs, but perhaps not to the camera you were hoping for. There is a group of people that are wanting to see the Sony a7S III gain this capability. There's a change.org petition for it. It has, when I last looked, about 700 signatures, which I think is enough to get Sony's attention. As you said, Jordan, Sony doesn't like to be told they can't do something, or they'll
get petulant immediately.
Fix it.
I totally missed this last week. I'm disappointed in myself because I said they're really bringing these cameras, to parity with the other models. And this is something that processor is totally capable of that they did not bring over to it. We've seen it in other series.
Before I ask Levi what his opinion on this is, there is something that's worth pointing out. They let you do this on their FX30, FX3, FX6 cameras, which are cinema cameras, video cameras. Sony will be quick to tell you that despite what most people use it for, the A7S is not a video camera.
That's why it's so confusing.
Yeah, people use it for video because it's really good at it, but Sony's like, it's not really a video camera. Don't do that. So maybe that's why. I don't know. Levi, what do you think?
Yeah, it's always a little bit baffling how there's those I think there's just lines drawn sometimes of whoa. This feature isn't going to be here. This is if that feature's in there, then we can't put it in this class of camera anymore. Yeah. So, it just is stubbornness sometimes of how people actually use the cameras. And
they can say all they want that the A7S III is not a video camera, but how many people are actually using it for photography? 6.
Yeah, I don't know, but I certainly, just my anecdotal experiences, everyone who talks about that camera goes, wow. Love filming with that thing.
Now, for your workflow, Levi, you're using LUTs all the time, right? Shooting a lot of raw footage, shooting a lot of log footage.
Yeah. I mean, I just for the Canon R5C, which I've been shooting on a ton this year. That is also got kind of one of those little slightly quirky things. It has Canon Log 3, but not Canon Log 2. Mm-hmm. 2 is actually the flatter.
That's
profile.
The gold. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a little thing that they're.
Jordan told me he loves C-Log video.
I like C-Log 2. C-Log 3 is dumpster fire.
Well, I made it work. Okay. How dare you?
Yeah. Beautiful looking. You overcome. That's a true story of triumph that you were able to turn C-Log 3 into a great film.
Do you use a lot of custom LUTs while you're shooting?
I don't no. I mean, I'm usually just using the simple conversion over to to 709. But if I was doing on doc work, it's not as integral for the process necessarily. But if I was shooting narrative work, a little bit more world building involved, we might make a stronger choice on what the grade is ahead of time, or kind of push into a more stylish territory. Then probably that LUT might be dialed in and part of the shooting process. But most of the time, just your standard 709 conversion.
Yeah. Well, don't do that on an A7S III right now, Sony.
You mentioned it's in the article that the very low end, ZVE1 camera that we all loved shooting the Blair documentary with, has this functionality, which is a much less expensive camera. So
that's not an Alpha Series camera.
Yeah, I know. It's the Z is the vlogging, but I do think it's silly. And if we raise enough of a stink, Sony will fix it. So you know what?
It'll happen.
We'll make it happen. Yeah,
it'll happen quick.
Levi's going to make it happen as well, right, Levi?
I have sway.
Yeah, go sign that petition.
I'm going to go comment on the article right now, and that might move the needle.
Yeah, that will.
So you guys probably know, I'd be shocked if not everyone in this chat didn't know, that Nikon acquired Red recently, or at least is in the process of doing so. But did you know that they were already in the cinema business to some degree?
I've been to trade shows.
I would say that most people probably don't know that.
No, I didn't.
You didn't. So, okay, here we go. Levi did not know. Well, Nikon owns a company called Mark Roberts Motion Control, MRMC. It's a robotics company that makes big and small cinema camera robots, and they have a new one. It's called the Cinebot Max, and it's real big, and it's real performant, and it's real cool looking.
Just another robot taking a job away from a human being.
All right.
I mean, these are very cool. The purpose of the robots is a lot of the time, if you're doing a time lapse or something like that, people have a motion control rig where you say I want you to take this long to move from this point to this point. But these robots are designed to give you full movement in 360 degree space. So it's not just moving linearly in one way. We can pan, tilt, rotate around things. And I mentioned trade shows because at NAB for the last 5 years, the way that this has been demonstrated is a robot dancing, where you can go in and dance with the robot alongside it. And they've been doing this for a while now. But you see it all the time, like on a lot of like commercial, especially like tech reviews and stuff like that. Now we're starting to see this. I know MKBHD did use one for a while for product shots. And then it became, kind of time consuming was his reasoning for not using it as often. But yeah, it lets you create shots you couldn't otherwise get. And it's pretty cool stuff.
The first time I saw this was actually the Samsung event that we all went to. Sorry, Levi, you weren't there, but the rest of us were.
Were they using one?
They were. So at the stage, they had the dolly tracks,
weird
going
over
around,
the shoulder shot.
They had the dolly track sort of U-shape around the stage, right? And this, robot cam was sweeping back and forth. And it is very impressive to see how quick it can move, obviously. Perfectly precise motion control, perfectly precise framing, and really let them do a lot of dynamic switches and cuts back to people on the stage. But I've also seen a human being, Levi Holwell, on a hoverboard with a camera in his hands.
Segway, yes.
On a Segway.
He was Job from Arrested Development, yeah.
Just like buzzing around dancers real time, and he did not crash into a dancer, and the footage was beautiful. So I would still put Levi Holwell on a Segway over a robot cam any day.
Robot can't take Levi's job.
I don't endorse that.
Yeah, I was going to say, Levi, would you like to do that instead of using a robot?
I am done with the past of Segway operating. I look back now and I go, nobody was living more dangerously than me.
That was amazing.
I mean, obviously, I've never had a chance to make anything that required a robot on set, but I have watched also like Jordan was saying, a lot of BTS too, and just like how obviously like scientifically repeatable the moves are. Right. And then like the world of VFX, it's just like the precision to be like, all right, this camera is going to be exactly here is, I don't know. It's pretty cool, but yeah, probably not something that you have on a smaller set when you're like, oh, well, we got to get through a lot of shots today.
I'm gonna ask to review this because how cool would that be for our B-roll?
And I just feel like that's gonna end with somebody in the hospital.
I mean, if I have a robot, do I need Jordan? That's the question, right? Like, I don't know.
You can't replace
robots. Looking. I mean, well, then Jordan better get a Segway.
Well, the thing is, you still need Jordan to edit your videos.
Oh, right. There's no robot editors yet. Oh.
I'm sure it's coming. I'm going to enjoy my paycheck while it's still rolling in.
There's AI. I'm going to start a company called Raven AI Editing. We're going to
just to spite me.
All right. Okay. Well, that's the news. It wasn't that busy of a week, but what's behind us? Let's
which is good because we can have a big conversation.
Yeah, I'm going to turn this over to Jordan to lead this convo to talk about Levi. Maybe Levi should tell us about himself.
I could do that. Should I do that?
You should do that.
Tell us about yourself, Levi.
Whoa. So I'm a filmmaker from Calgary, based in the same city, of course, that Chris and Jordan are from. I originally met these two because I also worked at the camera store back in the day. And so I'm a filmmaker, and what else can I say about myself? I started I did the whole thing where leaving high school like 10 years ago, I knew I wanted to pursue filmmaking. Started out with like kind of saying to my parents, maybe I'll do a gap year, see how that goes. And that's when I started working at the camera store. Went in there as an avid viewer of the reviews that these two gentlemen made. Realized, as I've told them many times, that they were quite disappointing in person when I saw the operation they were running.
A ramshackle, spackled together YouTube channel.
I had like rose-colored glasses on for like a week.
We destroyed that pretty quick. We cracked those glasses.
But yeah, while I was at the store and basically ever since then, I just had been making films, essentially short films. Jordan has DP'd 2 short films that I've made, one called Metanoia, one called A Walk Down to Water. So
in the background here, there's my Ampia from Metanoia right there. Hey.
Oh man.
fingerprints all over it.
Yeah,
now.
that's shameless.
Yeah.
But
Sorry, everybody.
Chris,
so sorry.
you can pull out an award too if you'd like.
I don't really have much around here, you know. So Jordan and I worked together on some of these films. Unfortunately, I haven't cast Chris as an actor in one of them yet.
No, that is fortunately.
Yeah. It's one of those things that every time I see him, I just have to dance around. It's tough. Other than that, and then this past year, or I guess throughout the course of 2023, I got a chance to make my first documentary. It's a 45-minute doc called Magic Hours. And so that was a new experience. And that's kind of me in a nutshell, I guess.
Yeah, I wanted to have you on because you've just released the doc. Can you tell us what it's about and just give our viewers kind of an idea?
Yeah, so Magic Hours is a look at the independent, historic, like movie house landscape across Alberta. And so I pitched this project to the CBC up here in Canada, and every time I found myself like shooting in a lot of these like kind of small rural Alberta towns with less than 5,000 people, I'd always see kind of that old, beautiful cinema on the corner of the street. And there's been so much conversation around the future of movie theaters, how people watch movies nowadays, like not just old little independent cinemas, but just AMC, Cineplex here in Canada. Like everything has changed drastically, to say the least. And I just found myself always looking at these places and kind of going, I wonder how that's doing. And the people who are running these movie theaters thought they might have an interesting story. And so the film really features a kind of an ensemble of 8 different movie theaters kind of scattered around Alberta, and tells the stories of the people who are running them, theaters that were really struggling, theaters that are trying to reopen in a community that doesn't have one. And yeah, that's kind of Magic Hours.
Yeah, like it's a wonderful film. I was able to check it out. Chris, you were able to see it as well, right?
I did see it. Yeah, it's like I had a lot of thoughts watching it because, of course, this is going across all of Canada, which is great, and it does showcase our province. But being from this province, these towns you're talking about, you visit these places, so it's really kind of like a beautiful love letter to see what the communities are struggling with and what they're trying to build. Like you've done a lot of work before. Metanoia was shot in a small town there. You've shot around parts of Alberta, but what was this experience like, meeting all these people and going to all these small towns and really getting more than just like a superficial look at what's involved here with these people?
Yeah, I mean, obviously I really believe and hope that despite it having strong energy, certainly of the province we live in, that the people in the documentary and the theaters and the stories that are told like really translates well, I believe, across Canada and hopefully across the States and other parts of the world. But
yeah, this is happening everywhere.
Yeah, like theaters around the world are certainly like it's a big global shift for sure. And a lot of these theaters that are, especially if they have like 1-2 screens, they're in crisis. But getting a chance to like travel around to these places, that you guys have already spent so much time shooting episodes in over the years and doing little day trips out to, it was really special for sure. Like the people were super warm, and that's always one of the the best things about making a film is you're sitting in a living room having an interview with somebody that you otherwise never would have in a million years been chatting about life with. So it was super rewarding. And, I had made short films that were set in places like Hazar, which is a 200-person town, or Olds, which is a couple thousand people, and kind of thought I might be done with that. And then this project came about, and I was like, oh, that was just getting me started to go and film a lot of these towns that are, especially like so prone to obviously like boom and bust cycles of the traditional industries that kind of, get our province going. So, super fun.
What really kind of wanted to point out that is a difference from how we've been shooting. Because Chris and I actually did some documentaries this year. I really wanted to bring you on to talk as well, because we really haven't talked about the Idaho documentary that we did a while back. It seemed like, but we worked in completely different ways than how you did this film. One real benefit that you had is time. I mean, I'd say the most effective moment in the film is when we have a theater closing down and then we cut to 6 months earlier. I think that's just something, being able to really know those people, have that time allows you to tell a much more complete story. I know, like, for example, we did the Blair documentary, and there's additional context now that would be really great to have in that film. So I'm looking at doing like a festival cut of it and stuff like that. If you have a longer term ongoing project, then you can just wind up with a much more engaging doc. And honestly, your subjects are going to be more open as well. And that really comes through in your film.
Yeah. There's definitely obviously no one right approach, and there are certainly docs or films that like work in the opposite way. But the first thing that when we were having the early conversations that I was having with our very small team was like, okay, how many people do you want like in your crew as we're doing a budget? And if you have X amount of people in your crew and this is their rates, then maybe you can do 10 days of shooting or something. And I know a few other like local filmmakers that have kind of done like a road trip style. They just line up a bunch of like interviews and they hop in a van with a small crew and they just hammer out like a week, basically. And the first thing I said was, I was like, I want to, in every area I can, reduce the cost of leaving the house to go shoot, to go get a day on this doc. And instead of doing 10 days in the span of like 2 weeks, I was like, I want to try to do like 25 over the course of like 6 months. And that's why it was filmed with just basically lots of times on set, myself and our co-cinematographer Jamie Stewart, or lots of days just me. We didn't have the budget to have another 3 people there, but you don't always necessarily need that in a doc. And that was like the biggest thing I immediately said in our approach was, we're going to stretch this out.
And it paid off. Like, again, the moments that really speak to me, you only had because you had that amount of time.
Yeah, and then you've got Levi. You've got Levi Holwell luck too.
I was just going to say, like, it also depends on the nature of the interviews. You know, if you're going to meet an expert and you're doing kind of like a classic, like a lot of Netflix docs are like, all right, now we're going to this psychiatrist or like this expert on this subject. It's like, you don't need to necessarily spend, if they're just giving you information and context to your story, like you probably don't need to get to know them over the course of 5 months.
Totally.
And be like, hey, so, what's your relationship like with your kids? Like, you just need to go, and you can totally line up interviews. And obviously there's a reason why logistically lots of times people are like, hey, here's a shooting block, let's pack this up. But I just wanted a chance to get to know these people over the course of time, to get them to feel more comfortable around the camera, to open up about their lives a bit more.
I really thought about that in terms of the Idaho video that we did as well. There was a woman, Mary Jane, who we went and conducted the main part of the interview as soon as we met her, and then went and hung out with her for the day. And the vibe on the two halves of that interview are completely night and day different. And it made me think, like, what we really should have done is hang out first, talk to her later, once Chris already had that rapport with her. And I mean, that's just the process of doing this more, is learning that more and more.
1 day is like, you can only do so much with a person in 1 day. I mean, what's really beautiful about this movie is time is obviously like a big part of this movie, right? There's a sense throughout the whole film of like the impending time, what's going to happen. It's kind of, I got this feeling like it's about this light that's fading, and how do we hold on to it, and how do we capture it, and how do we keep it? And so seeing that progress of some of these theaters where they're doing okay, or they're struggling, but they got a plan, and now it's like, no, we're closing. You have to have that relationship of that time span to really see that transition. And then the emotional impact, I mean, it comes through beautifully. I wanted to ask you, like, because you had this such a close relationship with these people. with your approach on it, I know why you want to do it. I mean, we all love cinema. We love that nostalgia. We love that.
Yeah, this
feeling.
movie was like made for the people in this room right now.
Right.
It feels like to a degree, or the people who love this.
What are you talking about, Jordan? Everybody. It's made for everybody. It's a wide audience.
If you're in Canada, I tried to watch it and I was told no.
Yeah, but I mean, okay, darn, you got me there.
But I wanted to know like a bit of backstory, like. Everybody's got different reasons. Like one thing that's cool about this project too is like all the people are experiencing different realities, right, of what they're trying to do. Yeah. So do you think like what were people really trying to get? Like, are they trying to reclaim a sense of community? Are they trying to reclaim a nostalgic feeling? Are they trying to transition this into something that goes beyond theater? That's maybe something different.
Remind people that they're there as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, why are they doing it?
I would say I went in thinking that most people who own a movie theater, they might be like some crazy cinephile, like movie nerd. And obviously, I don't speak for all movie owners. There's a lot more out there than that are feed. It's just a 45-minute doc, okay? It's not the entire experience, but I just found that most of the people I talked to, certainly we met some real dedicated movie nerds who either volunteer on a board or are working at a movie theater as a manager because they're your classic. Like, I just, what genre of cinema do you want to talk about? What decade? Let's talk movies. But by and large, 95% of the people I met, they just really were doing it because they were like, they cared about where they lived and where they called home. And they felt like it's a part of the puzzle of these places generating a sense of vibrancy for these towns. It's not like, oh, the town is super screwed and it's no one wants to live here if there's no movie theater, but it's kind of part of just trajectory towards, especially in like smaller rural communities of a couple thousand people between, losing, clothing stores on Main Street or just small businesses, basically. The bowling alley goes, the movie theater goes, the person who had an art gallery, that goes. And like eventually enough places close and you're like, what do we really have here? And is this a place where still people want to get together and kind of call it home? And not to sound like too cheesy, but they all just want to be a little more excited about the areas that they like live in, and they want to provide something to the people who live there. And a lot of them are older too in age, and they're not planning on like, hey, I want to visit this theater for 30 more years to go. Like, they want to keep it in the community for also younger generations to enjoy. And I really just think they care about where they call home.
As a quick follow-up, was there a dynamic difference between the small theaters that are in major centers like in Edmonton and Calgary, places like the Globe and the Plaza and stuff, versus these small towns? Like, you assume because the big cities got lots of people and economy and all that kind of stuff, maybe it's a different dynamic.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely differences, but no, I mean, there's no matter where you are, these theaters, even in places like Vancouver, and I'm sure there's a million stories in LA, New York, I hear it all the time, like, even a place like New York, where you'd think like the movie going population has to be as healthy as anywhere. And I see all the time stories about historic theater torn down because it's like, well, that's not going to turn enough profit as what that piece of property is probably worth for, apartment buildings or something. And it's all that different. Calgary and Edmonton, like the Garneau Theater in Edmonton is a not-for-profit theater. And I think that's becoming a lot more common, is the business model of a business making a bunch of cash for a family running the movie theater is tough. So not-for-profit and a town or a city deciding we want to protect this building, we're not going to let it go. Then a board runs it. And that I think is going to be a really common model for trying to save some of these theaters that will be closed down. Yeah.
Yeah. Just to jump over a little bit, because this is a show where we do talk about cameras and things like that quite a bit.
Yeah.
You're unique in that. You're unique in that you're a director and a camera op as well. And for this, I know there were important scenes where you were shooting this completely by yourself, not even a sound person on set. Like, what did you choose in order to capture this, knowing it was going to be a long-term project? And what sacrifices did you have to make technically?
Yeah. So great question. I think, again, we knew that we didn't have the money. Like, I also grew, like, I didn't learn filmmaking in a film school. Like, I think a lot of people who watch this show watch what you
learned
guys
at the camera store.
I learned at the camera store.
Everything is from helping us out doing the best and worst videos.
Yeah. But no, I think like there's a lot of people who watch this show who own, obviously, like whether it's photography or filmmaking, and it's like you kind of always have this question in your mind of like, how much can I do on my own, and how many things do I need around me to also like make my work better, and can I do it on my own, or is there something that like feels inaccessible to me to like make my work get seen more? Or, I don't know. So like it was really nice, I guess, learning a lot from like testing cameras when I worked there, and even still over the years with you guys when we're like shooting is like you have a camera in your hand. You know, you definitely for me, I'm not the filmmaker who ever has experienced I'm in my like seat in Video Village, like, 200 feet away or something. So anyways, this film was shot on the Canon C300 Mark III as our primary A cam, I guess you could call it. But and then the other camera that was used extensively, probably about 50% of the footage, it's almost a 50-50 split, I'd say, is the Canon R5C, which is, I guess it's like a $4,000, Jordan?
Ish, Canadian, probably right around there. But it's not much of a premium over the standard R5. Like, certainly like a third of the price of a C300 III.
It's $3,600 for us in America.
Okay, yeah, so I'm relatively close. At least that's good. I didn't want another Weber situation. No, yeah. So those are the two cameras we shot it on, and we kind of had like two modes of making the documentary and trying to you always want one, story, and two, to look good. It was really important to me to try to make something that felt somewhat expensive and polished, and so. If our cinematographer Jamie was out with me, typically we had like kind of a small SUV filled with gear, and Jamie, who's a cinematographer here in Calgary, we'd usually bring out about 2 aperture lights, and both of them were like aperture 600s, a couple tube lights, and then thank God we were able to just know what we're doing with a boom pole to get decent interview sound, and then. Everything else, if I wasn't doing any big talking head interviews where it's really nice to have someone making sure the shot is, in focus, and Jamie's did an incredible job lighting the interviews in this doc. But everything else was kind of just me collecting moments and putting time in, and Jamie wasn't always able to do the long drives out to the set. So I just headed out with a little camera, and that was really empowering for me. That this camera that is, this kind of smaller, it doesn't scream big professional movie camera by any means. It's capable of just getting like really beautiful images, and it cuts into the dock, and no one would ever for a second be like, did you just switch to a smaller, cheaper camera? It's really empowering that you can just you at least there wasn't like a moment where I ever felt, oh, there's something happening at one of these theaters today, but I can't go because I don't have the van full of gear and I don't have 3 crew members with me. Like, I can go and get it myself. And you have to know your limitations of the types of footage that you can or can't get those days, kind of thing. But we just slapped on an old Nikkor 50mm on the Canon R5C, and little Rode Video Mic Pro up top. That was maybe one of the limitations, was that the audio and the B-roll was used a little bit more sparingly in the edit. But you just then you can really just hang around these people and where the stories are unfolding, and that's a big part, is just building that bank of footage.
I actually
was that question. We were shooting the Blair doc. We always had that no, relationship Jaron. We always had that relationship in the Blair doc where it's like, you want to do sit-down interviews. You've got questions prepared. You want to capture that, right? It's a lot of storytelling. But you also want to get those moments where it's unscripted and it's live and, moving. So some of the more powerful moments I found were like, I forget her name, but she seemed like a lovely lady, the owner of the Jewel.
Wendy.
She's talking to the kindergarten kids, and and the kids are mentioning how they were there the week before, or the weekend before, and they really enjoyed it. And like, how did you capture that kind of stuff? Was that just R5C, one lens, small video mic kind of thing?
Kind of both. There's a lot of moments that were captured, like with the R5C, with just me there. That particular moment, because it was the last day of this theater being open, we knew it would be, obviously a big part of the story. Jamie, of course, was there, and he was filming that on the C300 Mark III. We didn't plant that child there, though,
no, that's crazy, because lots of
I know, like, there's like 400 kids, and the guy who's who's in the foreground 1 foot from our camera is the guy who's like, I have something to say. So no, it was both cameras, but
that's cool.
Yeah, sorry, Jaron. Yeah, did you want to shoot?
I had a question for those of us who aren't going to be able to watch your film because of Canadian internet rules or whatever. I have a general question about approaching documentary filmmaking. So as a bit of a background, I shot a lot of, I call it documentary. They're documentary style, but I did them for commercial clients where they want to tell the stories of like the people that use their products or whatever. And so those are very short tidbits. And if there was anything that happened in the back, like I'm about to say, it was easy to get around. But like when you do longer stories, the longer you go and the more time you're spending on a specific project, the more this crops up. And it's, you come into these documentaries with an idea of the story you want to tell, whether it's the one that you came up with or the client came up with.
Yeah.
However, that might not actually be the story that's best to tell, but by the time you realize it, the shots have already completed. And Jordan sort of touched on this before, where it's like, maybe we should have gotten to know these people before putting them on camera.
Yeah.
And a lot of times you do not have that luxury. You are doing it when the script allows it, the timing or whatever. And this is not something you run into when you're shooting like a scripted film where you control the narrative start to finish. You decide what you want it to say. But when you talk to a real human who may or may not have ever been on camera before, it becomes complicated because they may say something that's really awesome or say something that is in complete contrast to the story you're trying to tell. Okay. So like, how do you adapt a story? Like, how do you even plan to do a documentary when you may not know what the people that you plan to talk to are going to say and how they're going to react? And do you have to shift your story? And how do you do that throughout the process?
That's a great question. And again, my caveat would be also learning over here. So definitely not preaching any gospel, but like, I thought about that a lot, like working on the documentary. There were little times I'd joke with Jamie after an interview where he would see me trying to try to pursue a line of questioning to get an answer that I'm kind of looking for. I've
certainly never done that on this podcast before.
So I'm kind of trying to follow up a few times, and maybe I just can't. They don't share. Like, they're not going to say what I think the documentary would be a helpful soundbite or something. And it is like a really interesting balance between adapting to where, life is happening, reality is unfolding, and you hear it all the time. A lot of great documentaries have a story of, we started making a film about this, and then as soon as we started talking to someone, we went, what the hell is going on over there? And then the whole thing, so many documentaries have that story of just this big pivot. That's not always possible, of course, right?
So for commercial projects, it's almost impossible.
Yeah, impossible, exactly.
I've talked to a CD, a creative director afterwards, and it's just did you know any of what we just did? And no, I had no idea what they were going to say. I had no idea that's what we were going to have to work with, and I'm sorry. Stuff like that. It's just well, what do we do now? Because we don't have the budget to reshoot, and this is not the story you told me we were capturing. And it's just we'll get it in editing.
I've seen it happen too, and because I've also worked in the commercial space, and sometimes it's just there's so many different reasons that maybe somebody's picked for a sponsored video in partnership with some brand, and then it's just hey, but this is as soon as you meet the human being, they want to start talking about something that happened. You're well, we kind of just here to talk about electric bikes, For
me, it was we're just kind of talking about banking. It's really, can we just focus on the banking part?
Yeah, absolutely. Right. It's one of the difficult things, I guess, of having, if you are doing freelance filmmaking or freelance videography work and you are hired to do something for a client, it is tough because you just have a lot of other boxes to, kind of walls that you bump into, and it's a really tough balance. Yeah, I don't know if there is any right way to go about it other than just trying to fight for any footage that you can get. And I guess in the client sense, pre-pro is the more conversations I guess you can have about it, the better.
Yeah. One thing that I do want to say, first of all, Jaron said he wasn't able to watch the film. VPNs are your best friend. So definitely grab one of those. Say you're in Canada. It's a free, you can stream it for free through CBC Gem here in Canada. But also, if that's complicated, you don't want to, just reach out to us on our social media, and we're going to try and make sure that we give you a way to watch the film somehow. And if you're a programmer in the States, I think it would be a great idea to get this film playing the States or anywhere. Reach out to us, let us know, because I think this could do really well on the festival circuit.
Yeah, thanks, Jordan. I mean, yeah, for anyone in Canada, it is available for free on CBC Gem. You just have to make an account. But yeah, and anyone who's like, hey, if there's a small theater out there, or you live in a smaller community, like, I think this movie plays really well in a theater as well, for sure. And we would love to. We could very easily try to make that happen, where we can show the film in some of the places that are so similar to the theaters featured in the film.
Thanks,
Cool.
man.
Yeah, Levi.
Beautiful
Thank
story.
you. We'll put as many links as we can in the description of both the podcast audio only and on YouTube for anyone who can watch. And if you're like me and need to get a VPN, I actually also need one to email a company in Japan whose email doesn't let them email out of Japan, which is super weird. I didn't even know that was like a thing, a restriction that anyone could put on it. There you go. So I've got 2 reasons now to pick up a VPN. So maybe I will. So with all that said, let's move on to what have you been up to? I'm looking at Chris's desk where he usually puts something weird. And it looks like
This
I'm
is
going to
weird?
guess flies. Are those flies?
This is normal as possible. This is not. Yeah, these are flies. So
Flies
I'm
not like
going to
bugs. Flies like, for fly fishing.
like for fly fishing. Yeah. So yeah, that's what I've been doing with any minimal free time I've been having. I've been tying.
You make
flies
your own,
here.
right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, these are all tied, and I'm going to go steelheading here in West Coast BC in the next couple weeks. Very excited. Haven't done that in over a decade. So tying some flies. This is the kind of fishing where you might not catch any fish. You cast for hours and hours and hours all day.
Sounds great,
right?
It sounds great, right? But it is, because it's about contemplative meditation. It's about perfecting your cast. It's about letting your body just be in that environment. It's cold, it's wet, but it's beautiful, and you just, it's transcendent.
Levi,
Or
Jordan
something.
has a very loud and vocal history of saying how little he likes fly fishing. Do you have any input on this?
I love the idea of fishing, but
Yeah, theoretically sounds great, right?
yeah. I don't get a chance to do it. If I go out to a lake though, I don't have any gear myself, and my one friend who has a cabin out in BC, I'm always so we can go fishing, right? He's like, I don't know, we might not have time, and I'm like, no, you need to get the gear out in the tackle box, and you need to give me a fishing rod. And I'm like, even if we do it for 10, 20 minutes, because maybe there's a part of me that feels like I'd be happier if I did it more.
How many Chris fishing videos have you been subjected to?
Not
film?
that many. No, I think the Pentax K2, the infamous Pentax K2.
Yeah, the rubber sole camera. Yeah.
I think just that one, really.
Oh, well, you got off easy then. Yeah. No wonder you still have some semblance of fondness.
I have to say
for
that
it.
I don't love fly fishing, but when we were shooting in Idaho, I was having a grand time.
Imagine being in that one spot for 5-6 hours, Jaron.
6 hours is a long time.
No. We went to Idaho. I fished for so little, so much less than I wanted.
Idaho was an
Completely
ideal
unfair.
situation. I got some beautiful footage, and
you
we
got beautiful
out.
footage. How can you complain? I mean, we were catching fish.
I'm not complaining about Idaho.
The nature was great. Oh my God. Anyways, you have a very negative attitude about it. But no, there's some hobbies you do because they're fun. They bring you joy. But fishing kind of goes beyond that, I would say. You get the joy. There is lots of fun. But at the same time, it's a lifestyle, and it's a chance to be away from whatever is bothering you. And it really is. It goes beyond, I would say, most hobbies in a really beautiful way. So I feel like you don't have to enjoy it, but if you don't do it, you are missing out in some way, shape, or form. Absolutely, something that's really beautiful. Anyways, I'm excited.
Awesome. I'll go. So I just wanted to do a little plug. I was listening to podcast last night from former guests, past and future guest, Tyler Stallman, has the Stallman podcast, which is excellent. And he had Simbarosh Cha from the New York Times. He's kind of their fashion on the street photographer is his main gig, but does a lot of travel photography as well. Had him on the show to talk about street photography, not in terms so much like they get into cameras a little bit, like the X106 and the Q3, but just a lot of practical techniques and advice. And if you haven't seen Simbarash's work before, it is gorgeous. I mean, it helps that he's in New York, which is like a street photography mecca, but excellent work. And totally, if you're into street photography, I would listen to the latest episode of the Stallman podcast. Is good.
Yes.
Okay. I have nothing to add. I basically just went to try and get my dad's watch repaired. He has like a 1970 Omega Speedmaster, and it's not, the timing on it is still perfect. It just needs to be cleaned. And I got an outrageous quote yesterday, and I decided to look elsewhere.
Second opinion.
Yeah. And, she didn't even sound interested in what I was doing, probably because she doesn't they don't make enough money on that. So
right.
Fine.
Right.
I'll take my business somewhere else.
Levi, what have you been up to?
Yeah. What have you been up to, Levi?
Ever since kind of finishing up the doc, my partner and I, we're going to Europe at the end of this month, a few weeks from now. Nice. So we've just been kind of planning our little Tuscany countryside trip. And I've never been to Italy before, and we're going to a Taylor Swift concert when we're there.
In Italy?
Which is a big deal for Tyra, in Paris.
Ooh, that's probably really cool.
Yes.
Tuscany is. I won't bore you on camera about this, but I spent a lot of time in Florence and Siena. I'm very familiar with the area. So if you have any questions or you want recommendations on anywhere to go, restaurants and locations, I have my Google Maps is filled with them. So
can you do any fishing?
There's
no.
All right. Okay. Well, let's move on to tech support. This is the section where people get to ask Chris and Jordan, and this week, Levi, questions that they might have that are technology related. The first one is a speak pipe. This is where you can send us your questions and we hear your voice. This one is from Jürgen A. House. Let's listen in.
Hello, Jordan, Chris, and Jaron. This is Jürgen from Austin, Texas, and I'm wondering whether bridge cameras are pretty much dead. I believe there hasn't been a new bridge camera for 5 years. The last one was the FZ1000 Mark II. I have the first version of that, really enjoy it. It's great for traveling, but since there hasn't been a new one, I'm just wondering whether camera manufacturers have given up on this segment. What are your thoughts? Thanks very much, and I love the show.
Yeah, it's a sad story. I mean, it's obviously not a big market, and so any innovation, I would say, is dead, if that's fair, Jürgen. I mean, you can still get bridge cameras on the market. There are still people that like the convenience of having a small camera that's all in one with a huge zoom range. And that is one of the advantages of having a small sensor camera. You can put a very big zoom reach in front of it, without having to have a gigantic camera physically. But I don't think we're going to see a lot of big changes here. Smartphones obviously encroached a lot on the smaller point and shoot. So bridge cameras do still have a place because of their extra telephoto reach, but I don't think we're going to see an innovation, which is,
That was what I really wanted to hit on, is just this is a huge gap where, smartphones, sure, now we're getting like 100 millimeter lenses, but that's not much at all to speak of. So I think there's definitely a need for this. And I think they would actually be really surprised because the Sony RX10 IV is a killer camera that desperately could use an update. Now Sony's autofocus is worlds better. Their video is much better. These are killer video cameras as well. And the FZ1000 they brought up, now Panasonic has phase detect autofocus. So people are buying these for, sports with their kids and wildlife. And in both of those cases, the huge advances we've made in autofocus would make a really big deal. I think they'd be really surprised if someone brought out a contemporary super zoom bridge camera. I think it would do incredibly well. It just seems like they're missing an opportunity here.
Mm.
Levi's leaning backwards in his chair, so I will assume he means it.
I mean, the XC10 could technically be considered a bridge camera, Levi, which you gave the harshest review ever.
That's that Canon camera, right?
Yeah, that's the Canon, the hideous monstrosity, super slow lens.
I may have used that a lot. And
really?
I may have thought it was okay, and then now looking back, realize it was terrible.
I mean, Levi, You're getting older now, so you're obviously getting into birding. Are you like walking down the street, you see a bird, and now you're like, isn't that like a yellow bearded warbler or something like that? Like,
yeah, definitely.
Yeah, right. So bridge camera.
I guess I just need to do a little bit more activities around wildlife, really.
That's the theme of this show.
Yeah.
Levi's got to explore nature.
But the Canon XC10, that's hilarious. I do remember reviewing that camera or shooting with it a little bit at the camera store, but I also, I'm going to absolve myself of any responsibility for past words I said, because I really just listened to what Jordan told me to say on camera,
So really it's Jordan's opinion that it's
I kind of just shilled for him, and the
opposite of shield for it. You came up with the line that was like, Canon says this is the future of filmmaking, and if that's the case, the future is as dystopian as it is in any science fiction movie like The Terminator. Something along those lines, which was a great summarized it wonderfully.
I didn't fully appreciate the responsibility of having a YouTube audience and camera. I just remember people were upset with me, and I kind of want to apologize.
I remember we were at NAB right after that.
Yeah.
And they were like, do you want to meet the guy who designed the XC10? Because he'd sure like to meet you. And I'm like, no.
Oh, God.
Didn't they make a second one of those too? They followed it up, and that was
it. They did. Yeah, that was the end of it.
I may have used it for a year, but not like as a primary. It was like a C-cam.
Yeah, but, that's what it was made for.
Yeah,
I think I shot a wedding with it.
It's probably like a fun challenge now for videographers. It's like, to get production on an XC10 is like free diving down to the bottom of the ocean on one breath. Look, right? It's like,
to not disparage it entirely, I actually liked the grip of the XC10. I thought it felt good in hand.
Yeah, Canon have always made great handles. Yeah.
Okay, we're gonna move on before you guys go harder on the XC10.
Yeah. The next 5C is a better camera.
The next one is from Logan. I don't know if it's the same Logan or if we have like 1,000
Logan,
Logans.
the king of SpeakPipe.
But we got a SpeakPipe and it's split into two. So we're gonna listen to both his questions and answer them as best we can. So let's listen in.
Hey guys, so I have two questions that are completely unrelated from one another. The first question is for Jordan. I enjoy making a little short film from time to time, but I have absolutely no formal education in filmmaking. I haven't been to film school, I've never worked on a set, and every short film I've done up to this point, I've been flying completely solo. So my question for Jordan is, if I was to get together a bare bones film crew, like I'm talking 3 to 5 people other than myself, just the bare minimum needed to get by, what would be the most essential roles to fill? And my second question is for Jaron. So I was looking at the buying guides on the PetaPixel website, and I noticed there isn't much related to video there. There's no dedicated buying guide for the best video cameras, and in the computer and software guides, there doesn't appear to be anything dedicated to video editing or anything related to that. So I guess my question is like, what's up with that? Is that a choice, or is that just something you guys haven't gotten around to doing yet? Just curious. All right. Thank you as always for making this podcast. I love it.
Yeah, I certainly have opinions on this, but I'm not nearly as qualified as Levi to take the lead on this. You've got a small crew making a narrative film. Levi, what are you going to do? Who are you going to hire? Who's going to be there?
Yeah, well, if I understand what he was kind of saying, if I got to go 3 or 5 people max, who do I need for sure? I think it all depends on your deficiencies, because everyone is kind of taking on an approach of, obviously I'm doing a lot myself, or your how many hats can I wear? So it depends. Like, yeah, obviously you're going to need a cinematographer unless you're like, I can light this myself, or I can camera operate myself. Like, maybe the biggest weakness in your repertoire is just good sound, which is huge. And that's one thing I wish that I had, like a best friend that also would have showed up for no money, who was just a sound legend, because we were always we were sound deficient. So
I think Alex is union, so he's not going to help you out with that.
You just can't do it, yeah.
But yeah, obviously, if you want someone else's eye, or you don't necessarily know much about lighting yourself, you're going to want to bring on collaborators who can help fill in your deficiencies. I think, especially on a smaller set. So outside of your outside of your on-camera talent, I wouldn't say that just because you always hear like people look at Hollywood movies, I think when you're starting out and you're like, well, I want to be like more legitimate. And so that means I need a cinematographer and I need a costume designer. And it's like, what can you confidently say if you did yourself, it'd be bad? Then go find people to do that for you.
Lighting,
and
sound, direction, camera would be like my 4 things that you absolutely must have. And then if you put yourself in 1 or 2 of those categories, then you can fill the rest with help.
Exactly.
If at all possible, like a producer or an AC, like just someone to keep a set functioning as well, so you can focus on creative decisions, makes a world of difference, if at all possible.
Actually, that's a great point. I would say an AD is up there, even on a small set.
Sorry, I meant AD, not AC. I apologize.
Yeah, no, an assistant director, even on a small set, but just like someone who is really on top of like, will we have a movie at the end of this shoot? Are we moving fast enough? Yeah. You aren't even close to filming this scene. Like you need someone logistically making sure, because you can get caught up in like the first 4 hours of your first day being like, wow, we just got 3 shots that are so great. And like, this is why we wanted to show up and make this project. And then like, by the time you get to the end of your 4 days, you have just a train wreck of a movie and just like 3 nice photos to post about it, you know, like, so AD is good, even on a tiny set. It's just someone who's like making you be like, think big picture.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Let's go to Jaron's question.
The second question for me is like, why do we suck at PetaPixel and video guides? I'm actually not going to throw Jordan under the bus here, as easy as that would be. The reason for this is kind of twofold. PetaPixel originally was super focused on only photography. Like the vision of it is like they didn't want to do like the f-stoppers thing and start leaning more into video. They wanted to the concept before I got there was to be strictly photo. So any of the people that were experts on anything were all photo related. And the second part of this is we've only recently started doing guides. Guides were something that we brought in about 2.5 years ago, something that I wanted to do. And we, based on who I inherited and our skill set and the people that we hired, they're all photo related. So we didn't really focus on video when we started filling that out. So it's not that we don't want to. It's more that I haven't forced Jordan to sit down and write anything, and I haven't done it myself. There are 2 people on the team right now who are like video. It's me and Jordan, and we kind of have other stuff that we're doing that makes it really hard to sit down and write buying guides. But I hear you. I will start on this, and I will get our team together working on it, because I do think it is important. Mm-hmm. And you're right, and I'm wrong, and I'm sorry, and please forgive me.
Shut up.
Forgive all of us, especially Levi.
But excuse me, but yeah, we'll do it.
For that XC10 quote that he made so long ago.
Yeah, don't buy the XC10. That is, I think now is a good time to say that.
I need to counter. I loved shooting on Canon for magic hours, okay? Let me tell you.
I'm using Canon right now, and I'm a Canon boy. So.
I'm using a Canon camera right now, and lovely experience.
But you shot Nikon glass, right?
I did, but we just happened to have these old Nikkor 50 around, so.
Yeah.
But that Nikkor 50 mil, it's
got
nice.
a look.
It's got a look.
All right. We're going to move on to the next one. This is from Risto from Estonia. This is an email. They say, spent the last 3 months in Lapland, Finland, drove 25,000 kilometers in that time and listened to a lot of your podcasts. Great work you guys do. I'm a freelance photo and videographer shooting on the Sony A7 IV and FX3. At the moment, my phone is over 3 years old. The Samsung S21 Ultra battery is kind of dead, and camera lens has also seen better days. Thinking of getting a new phone, and my choice right now that they're looking at is an iPhone 15 Pro Max. Don't really like the iOS system, but the log option and video capability of the phone should be next level. Is it really that good? Should I take it? I would use it for B-roll, vertical shots on top of my camera, for clients and myself, and in places where it's easier to fit a phone.
Yeah, it's awesome. There's a bunch of iPhone footage that's working its way into our show more every week. And especially because I'm using the Blackmagic app and I can set my shutter speed properly, it's really tough to tell what was shot on a full frame or, Micro Four Thirds mirrorless camera and what was on the iPhone. It is very good, but it's going to take a little bit of work in post, and the ergonomics for shooting on your phone are still a huge pain. But if you're going to use a phone, exactly.
Yeah, it's any phone. Yeah.
Now, I have heard some good stuff about the on the Androids. You can grab an app. The name escapes me right now, but we posted it in our phone shootout that'll give you the ability to record raw video. But raw video is even more of a pain to work with than those giant ProRes files. So I still think, head and shoulders, the iPhone is the king when it comes to video capture right now.
Coming from an Android universe, I thought the iOS system would actually be a real pain. It really wasn't, which I unfortunately should apologize for because I did write it for a long time.
Sure.
Yeah, I hate to admit it, but it's the iPad, garbage, but the iPhone, fantastic. No problem at all. So it is actually a really easy system to use. And the only thing that drives me crazy about my phone is if I'm scrolling on an article, sometimes for whatever reason, it will just zip right up to the top. And I freaking hate that. It drives me crazy.
Are you an iPhone user now, Chris?
He is.
I am.
I think I know what you're doing. Chris, you're fat fingering the very top. If you tap right above this little line here and you hit that sends you all the way to the top as a design decision.
I hate it. I hate it. And I want to turn it off.
Stop scrolling like this. Scroll like a normal person.
Levi, I'm back to my original statement. Apple sucks because they make you do things only their way, and it's oppressive.
I'm pretty sure you can disable it.
Levi, I'm curious. Have you used any, like in your dock, are there any grab shots from a smartphone? Did any of that find its way into the film, or have you used it for any of the other commercial projects you've worked on?
I haven't actually. I've never really properly utilized like how far phones have come, other than getting into cinematic mode when I got to take some videos of the first Christmas for my niece.
Our hair's gonna look crazy.
Yeah.
Don't worry. I listened to your advice. Going back a little ways now, but I stopped down just a little bit. I don't go for maximum.
F5.6 and you're there.
Yeah. But no, I've never properly utilized it, but I wouldn't I've seen the examples and it's obviously amazing and convenience is so huge when
I'm honestly considering getting a rig. Well, I have a rig, but setting it up, getting a microphone and using the phone for like Riverside videos, because they're rugged enough and compact. And so I'm seriously thinking about it. And the log footage is fantastic.
Apple Log is really wonderful. Yeah.
It is. Yeah.
All right. The next question is from YouTube. It's from Zerpsy. That's
good name.
That's an X, not a Z. Hey, I have a question. What power solution do you guys recommend for an on-camera monitor? I'm considering buying a monitor, but all the ones I've seen have a battery that limits its tilt angle range.
Oh, wow. Well,
I really like Small Rig makes some. I'm assuming this monitor that you already have is powered by NP series batteries. Those are the most common ones by far. Some people call them Sony Ls. That's what they used to be known as. There is a 570 battery made by Small Rig that is excellent. It's good life on it. Also has USB out. Which can be really nice. So now you're powering your camera and your monitor at the same time. And it's thin enough. You still get a lot of flexibility on the tilt there.
Is this it? No.
No, that's the big 99, which was going to be my other recommendation, is a larger battery where you can just snake a cable out like that Small Rig right there. Works incredibly well because then you can just have a dummy battery attached, or depending on some monitors now, they can just run off USB. You can put the battery away or even run it off a backpack and get life.
Didn't you do a video about that exact battery?
I did. I love those batteries. Like it was a sponsored video
when it was sponsored.
It was a sponsored video, and the jokes like they could have just been like, "Here's this thing," and I would have made a video being like, "These batteries are amazing!" Like just the ability to charge a V mount on USB changes everything. And I use it as like my travel laptop battery now. It's amazing. Great batteries.
Yeah, it is I feel like when you upgrade to a bigger on-camera monitor, and I don't know if you feel the same way, Jordan, but as soon as you leave the handy compactness of the built-in LCD and you go I feel like you're creeping up towards then just the whole build kind of going towards power supply at the back. There's a very fine line for me at least between as soon as you leave that compactness of just that nice small camera and you start to add just one or two, for me, I just kind of want to move to here's here's again like a V mount at the back that powers the monitor and powers the camera and just like everything.
Yeah,
gets a
one
little
big
bit bigger,
battery for
Big
everything.
rig.
Yeah.
All right. Hopefully that helps. Zerpsy. There we go.
Zerpsy.
All right, we're going to move on to Never Read the Comments, the section where we make sure to read every comment. And firstly, let's talk about their black and white JPEG video. And firstly, Chris, how dare you not include comparisons to actual film? Also, how dare you not include comparisons to actual black and white sensors? And thirdly, how dare you? That's it.
How dare you leave out Rico? How dare you?
Just in general, how could you think to make this video?
The nerve.
It would have been super easy and convenient to shoot analog film in all of these scenes.
And there's no variables in how you process analog film.
No,
that would skew
or the film
results
stock that you buy. I mean, but we'd have to test all the analog films, like the major ones that are still available.
Why didn't you do that?
I know, I'm lazy. And then we didn't throw the monochromatic cameras in there. We could have. I just kind of feel like I wanted to know what the color sensors would deliver for the vast majority of users.
Yeah, that was kind of the point of the video.
Yeah, Rico, I'm sorry, but we did Pentax. Like, if you acquire a company, I guess you just have to accept that it's going to be one or the other sometimes, not both. But yes, I'm a bad person and I did bad things.
A couple of questions that or comments that were about basically these sort of things, but there was a seeming exposure difference on the cameras. Are those different settings, or is that just how they look?
Yeah, that's just how they look. I mean, obviously there's going to be some variation. We tried to equalize as much as possible, but we're looking at histograms. We're trying to make sure that we're not losing shadow detail and blowing out highlights. And in that regard, we did that. So no, I mean, it's what was so fascinating to me about this experience was actually how different all these companies approach. When you're just reviewing a camera, weekly, and then you're not going to really touch it ever again for a long time, you don't really pay attention, or at least I don't in my brain, to like, oh, this is very similar to what the Nikon camera did 4 months ago. No, of course not. I don't remember. So it was really interesting to see all of these side by side. And that was the impetus for the video was really quite selfish. It was really an experiment for myself to see what these actual differences were. And I think we came to some interesting conclusions. And every company approaches things in a slightly different way that's really quite impactful to the final product.
Honestly, shocking how different they were. I was not prepared for that.
One other thing I'd like to point, this didn't find its way into the video, but I actually find it really useful, is if you're shooting JPEG and RAW, then those black and white profiles do make a huge difference, because you can be pre-visualizing the black and white. You can play with the RAW file to get it where you want. But if the camera has a nice black and white JPEG profile that's similar to how you process your images, it makes it a lot easier to properly expose them. And that can actually make a real difference when you're trying to pick the camera that you're going to use. So I did want to mention that. Levi, when are we going to get black and white film from you? Come on.
Black and white.
We both love black and white. Why hasn't it happened yet?
Yeah. Well, I feel like maybe some of the stuff I've made so far hasn't been commercial enough. So maybe never. Because I gotta figure out how to make some money out this. So no black and white.
I really want to, kind of.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was going for there.
Good reference. I caught you. Yeah.
I mean, haven't you seen Roma? Or the new Ripley series?
Yeah, I know, but there's a reason why he made his black and white movie after doing 20 years of becoming
Harry Potter.
Yeah. I feel like just try to get something that people watch, and then
then you can do the black and white. Okay, fine. All right.
Before we move on from the black and white video, it wasn't all just complaints. There were many who were like, "This is such an interesting concept that they never even."
I missed those.
So yeah, they were there. I found them. Like I said, I read every
Levi,
comment.
make sure you film your new movie on a Ricoh GR3, okay?
That'll make everyone happy.
I think those things are great.
Yeah. I don't know if we're filming.
So you shoot an entire feature with one, then we'll see.
So this is what I call the Raven section, because there were quite a few Corvid-based comments.
We
and
need to
emails
just
and
carve out 10 minutes every week for this.
No, we're not doing that. This is hopefully the end, but I've got a few here.
It'll die eventually.
I got an email from Binoski, and they said, well, of course, we're all used to the three of you sometimes being a bit squirrely, but in this most recent week, there were moments when some of you stark Raven mad. Get it? Raven. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
That was for you, Jordan.
2 thumbs up.
All right.
2 comedy points.
AFBLRL, I'm not even going to try and pronounce that, says,
Afrel.
to quote Edgar Allan Poe, who quoted a raven, suck it, Jordan.
Yeah,
That was on his tombstone. It was really weird. People were like, "Who is this Jordan?" And only now did we get to the bottom of it.
John Zanone sent an email. Good morning. I recently photographed this raven at the Bear Creek Migratory Bird Refuge near Brigham City, Utah, about an hour or so north of Salt Lake City. I can only guess this extremely smart, agile bird will be visiting Calgary in the near future and paying a visit to Jordan. So if he wakes up with a duck head on his pillow, he'll know how it got there. And in this picture,
nice reference.
It is a bird in flight, a biff.
It's a biff
with a duck head in its mouth.
Would it be a better picture if the bird carrying the duck head had some colorful plumage or something like that?
Not if your goal was
beautiful,
a bird that's black.
Yeah, it has beautiful iridescent black tones with just shimmering
garbage tones.
Yeah, no, it's beautiful. Yeah,
no, an infinitely better photo with a more interesting bird as the focal point would be my guess.
Levi, Jordan won't even go down to visit the Roxy Theater in Crow's Nest Pass because of the name of the town. So it's just he's unreasonable in this regard. It's
the name of the town's Coleman, though.
Well, yeah, but it's in the Crow's Nest Pass. They'll have nothing to do with it.
I see. Yeah. What about the three-eyed raven? Do you have anything to do with the three-eyed raven?
I think it sounds like at least there would be something interesting about it. So it'd be better than a normal raven, which is a boring bird that looks bad when you photograph or film it.
All right, I'm not going to make him talk about ravens anymore. We're going to move on.
Don't.
Let's never talk about corvids again.
I wanted to thank everyone for their kind words about my father last week. There were so many comments, and I shared them with my mother, and she was, misty-eyed about it. So thank you. And thank you all for your recommendations on where to get my camera. My cameras, my dad's cameras were repaired. The Blue Moon Camera and Machine in Portland, Pro Photo Supply, and Photolab are all ones I'll be checking out. Blue Moon Camera's up in St. John's. That is a drive, but I'm going to go and I'm going to check it out because it just looks cool. But I got an email from Paul in Austin that said, I posted a comment on your article about your father, but removed it because I thought it was insensitive. Just to let you know, Paul, it was not insensitive. So, that's why I'm reading it now. In my original comment, I talked about my father's camera. As a teenager in the early 1970s, he would occasionally let me use his Nikon F. When he passed away a few years ago, I inherited his cameras, including the F, as well as an FM and FG, and he sent a picture of all three cameras. I'll put it up for everyone to see if you're watching us on YouTube. But I had a chuckle when you showed that your father's Nikon F had some sort of sticker on the base plate. My father also had a sticker on his Nikon F. I'm guessing that the base plate is so slippery that it didn't get good purchase on tripods. Maybe putting a sticker on the base plate was a well-known hack to allow the camera to grip a tripod better. I did not think about that. That makes sense.
It's a dad trick. Total dad trick.
That looks even similar to the age and quality of the sticker on the bottom of my dad's. My father wasn't a talented photographer. He mainly shot portraits and flowers, but was more of a gearhead. His favorite lens was a Nikon 55 f3.5 macro. I never get to use his camera as much, and when I bought my first camera, it was a Mamiya M645. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, it's a nice story.
Yeah.
This one I brought up because I thought I wanted to get your guys' input on this. GeoChild on YouTube wrote, what a beautiful discussion on the value of printing your photos. There's something I've been struggling with. I don't think my photos are in a place where they are worth printing unless someone asks. I'm evolving so much as a photographer that I never feel now is the time to take a physical snapshot of my work. What do you guys think about that?
I mean, I would just go back to kind of what I said last week, where, you might not think it's good or worthy enough to be printed, but if it's a photo that you've kept consistently, know where that's stored, then it's probably worth printing, even if it's just a small 4x6, 5x7. Then that's how I would kind of self-curate, I think.
When I was maybe at the start of the camera store, so we're going way back, I did a gallery exhibit. I shot some black and white film. I was shooting a lot of analog at that time. I did a gallery exhibit, maybe a dozen prints. And I mean, it was very indicative of my style and skills at the time. They're not great photos, but they were all framed. I tucked them in a basement, ignored them forever. And then my older son found those and he went through them, and he's into photography as well. And he hanged them in his room, and he loves them. And when he told me that, the first reaction I had when he told me that was like, oh, those photos sucked though. They're not good. That was so far away, and it's not indicative of my style and stuff now. And I didn't say that because I then realized, well, there's merit to all of that path that you're doing and the time that you're learning and what you're changing and how your style can change. And he found a lot of value in that. So I would say the same thing for you. As much as you might feel like your photos now don't have value, other people might find the value in that. Maybe one day you'll find the value in that too. So I would say go for it. Don't feel like now is not the time. Otherwise, you'll never do it.
Yeah, I couldn't add anything better than that. I think that's a beautiful sentiment.
Okay, next one is from Tim Arthur from Forest Hills, New York, and they say that Jaron's stories about his dad really resonated with him, and that I mentioned that his father and his digital cameras was a fan of the podcast. So my question is, what kind of digital photography was he doing at the end of his life, and how would it compare to his 70s work? I used the Pentax until the 2000s, and in the last few years have become a confirmed DP nerd, which led me to become a huge fan of your podcast. So my dad was still a street photographer. He used, my microphone is on top of it right now. An EOS 1D Mark III was his camera that he got. And he got this camera from my friend Mike Kelly, who gave it to him for a screaming deal way back when. And he used this and a 24-70 f2.8. And he did street photography. And there's some of his digital files are also printed and put up in the house. He kept doing the same thing he always did. And it's his work looks, I'm looking at one right now that he took in London, and it is very much the same style that he shot in the 70s, just you can tell it's more modern. So you need to answer the question. Last one is from Andy Lee. This is also an email. I honor your father because he's probably a similar age to me. I also developed my black and white film, printed in a darkroom, cut my own mats, and framed them in my home gallery. I was also trained by Ansel Adams, and he was my mentor. I currently shoot mostly digital, Pentax K1 and Sony A7R5, and have prints made up to 30x40 to hang on my walls and share these printed images with others. Good luck with the refurbishment of your father's cameras. Not a question, just an email.
Nice.
Wanted to share. I liked it. It was good. Thank you. And that is the bottom of our script. We are done. That is the podcast. Thank you all for listening.
Levi, plug your movie super hard one last time before we go.
Levi. Yeah, tell people what you want them to do.
I want you to go and stream my documentary, Magic Hours. A lot of people are calling it the greatest documentary of all time. No, just kidding. Nobody
Hoop
has
Dreams has been
yet.
pulled off that, and now it is officially.
It's a beautiful film, and it's a poignant story for what we all love on this podcast.
Yeah, no, in all seriousness, I worked really hard on it for the past year, along with a lot of other people who are really dedicated. And it's a nice little 45-minute watch available on CBC Gem if you're in Canada. So if you take 45 minutes to go to CBC Gem and watch the film, I'd really appreciate it. Like Jordan said earlier, we'd love to find a way to get any audience members in any other parts of the world a chance to watch the film if they think it might resonate with them. And the best thing the best feedback I've gotten is people saying that they laughed, they cried, and hey, if you do both, that's good in 45 minutes.
It's very moving.
Yeah.
I'll put a link
thank you for having me on to talk about it a little bit today.
Of course.
Oh, and the rainbow shot over the Jewel Theater.
When the helicopter takes off right before, you're...
the Stars ambulance. Yeah,
that's an amazing shot. And you won't know what we're talking about unless you stream that.
I was like, no way.
I can't afford to CG a helicopter on a documentary.
Yeah.
Well, thanks again, everyone, for listening in. Thanks, Levi, for joining us. Thanks to OM
Levi.
System for sponsoring this episode. Make sure you go check out those discounts on those pro lenses that we've talked about now for a couple weeks. And there's a link in the description below. And we'll catch you next week for a special episode. See you then.